The episode starts off in such a way to dash any expectations and hope that it's gonna be a well-written episode. Russell T Davies did this one. So he did the first two, and then for some reason had the dude that wrote Tintin do that one. But now Russell's back. Are we gonna get space babies, or are we gonna get another bash in the military and Christianity? Let's find out. The episode starts off with the Doctor and Ruby ending up in Wales. The TARDIS just appears because, of course, they put in the coordinates, which makes me think about the last episode. Have we gotten an answer of why they showed up on that desolate, war-ridden planet? Was there any reason at all that Ruby said, hey, let's go here? We never got an answer to that to my knowledge, so I wonder, why are they deciding to go to Wales in this episode? The Doctor starts off by leaving the TARDIS and going, we are in Wales! And Ruby asks the question of, how do you know that? Like, are the rules of the TARDIS, are they not explained to me? I had people in my comment section questioning if I've ever even watched an episode of the show, though, because I didn't understand how the TARDIS works. Well, episode 3 really didn't make it that clear. Last I checked, it's not like the infinite probability button from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? You have to put in where you're supposed to go, right? So why would Ruby be confused? This isn't a surprise from the Doctor. We're like 30 seconds in, and I'm already going on a rant here. And who honestly dresses the Doctor at this point, though? Like, look at this outfit. What am I supposed to think while looking at this man? This is the hero of our story. He looks ridiculous. He looks like an absolute caricature of what you would expect someone like this to look and act. They are just going all in on stereotypes and then shaming us as the audience to be like, oh no, you guys don't like this? No, it's weird and dumb. As the Doctor and Ruby are having a spirited conversation about prime ministers and nuclear war, he steps on some weird dream catcher on the ground. And I'm instantly wondering, okay, last episode you were bashing Christianity pretty hard, so is this the witchcraft episode? Is Lady Gaga gonna make a satanic appearance in this one? But the Doctor accidentally steps on this dream catcher, and he's so upset at himself. He's talking to himself going, oh, I'm so sorry that I did this. I didn't mean to. Like, this guy is constantly going through character development changes. We haven't seen a consistent Doctor in any of these 4 episodes so far. Ruby picks up some papers on the ground and they say the phrase, I miss you. And another paper says, rest in peace, Mad Jack. And as Ruby's wondering that this must be some kind of memorial, she looks around and the Doctor has vanished before our eyes. She goes to the TARDIS and the door is mysteriously locked for some reason. Ruby even tries the special key that the Doctor gave her and it doesn't open either. Ruby goes around the TARDIS to look for the Doctor, hoping that he's not taking a pee, and then finds a random man just standing by the Dreamcatcher. Now, of course, Ruby does the only sensible thing. Let me introduce myself and walk up to this random person. And as I'm watching this, I'm wondering, didn't women just say they'd rather the bear than the man? What's going on here? For some reason, Ruby tells the man in the distance, can you just wait there? And then with a smile on her face decides, I'm gonna go trot over to this random person. Is this like normal behavior that people do outside of their homes? Like, oh look, random person, let me just run up to them. And as Ruby starts looking around, she comes to only one logical conclusion. That this man must have done something to the Doctor. And she questions, where is the Doctor? And then for some odd reason, maybe just really terrible writing, Ruby doesn't go to confront this person. She just decides, I'll just take a stroll on this island and or peninsula in the middle of nowhere. With the Doctor missing, I'll just go for a stroll. And every time she looks away and then back to the person, this dude is somewhere else doing this weird ritualistic hand gestures or something like that. And then Ruby decides to walk away as if completely unfazed that the Doctor is missing and this teleporting dude is doing strange hand karate and coming closer to her every time he teleports. Remember how last episode that I gave Ruby a lot of props for being brave and going towards the Doctor as he stand on the landmine and making sure, no, I'm going to hand this over to you to make sure everything's good? Just It's all out the window at this point, though. Every single praise I gave this woman. We're only like a few minutes in. We're only 3 minutes into this episode. It's not looking good. Russell T Davies is terrible at this now. But if you're a longtime Doctor Who fan, please let me know this. Was Russell T Davies always this bad? Or is it just worse now, or what's going on here? So Ruby just keeps walking around this island. It's showing that time is clearly passing. It's starting to get cold out. It might be starting to get dark. I can't tell. And every time she turns around, there's this dude again. She doesn't really seem concerned by any of this. She just seems more confused, if anything, or annoyed. Not like, oh my god, what is going on here? But then Ruby decides, I'm gonna run down this hill. Surely this person wouldn't follow me then. So she looks back up the hill, doesn't see anyone, giggles to herself, turns to the left, and there he is. And then we get the theme of this entire series so far, random snowfall, and it makes me wonder, is this because of Ruby, or is this because of the area of Wales? Does it snow in Wales? I've never been there before. Let me know what you think about that. And then Ruby is again confused that this person's following her, and then turns and finds this random hiker. And she explains to this random woman, oh, my car broke down. We're like on an island in the middle of nowhere. There are no roads we've seen so far. We've seen nothing but just peninsulas. So if your car, let's just say for instance, she's telling the truth, her car stopped dead on the road, why would you start walking out to the ocean? And they have just, a random pleasantry conversation. Oh, what's that town over there? It's Glim Gatwick. I do wonder if that's a nod to Point and Shooty Gatwick's name. And Ruby, for some reason, asks the woman, have I met you before? What do you think Ruby's thinking as all this stuff is going on right now? And then Ruby points out to me that this is a woman that's doing the hand karate. I thought it was a guy this entire time with long hair. My mistake, people. And then for some reason Ruby says to the woman, "Hey, do you see this this person behind me? Yeah, they're following me. I must have trespassed or something. Would you tell them for me that I'm sorry?" When I pointed out the last episode had a lot of filler, and people in my comment section were like, "Oh, what do you mean there's filler?" This is what filler is. We are 5 minutes in. We have gotten very, very little useful dialogue here. This is what's called filler dialogue, people. Time wasters. Why would you ask a random person, "Hi, can you apologize to this person in the distance for me?" And then, of course, the old woman asks the obvious question of, "Oh, what do you have to apologize for?" And Ruby says, "I don't know." And then, of course, the old woman asks the logical question of, "Oh, have I just run into something?" And Ruby says, no, everything's fine though. You're just going in this direction. So as you're going in this direction, talk to this random person that's been stalking me this entire time and tell them that I am sorry for the thing that I've done, which I don't know what I've done so far to upset this person. This is again what filler is, people. So the nice old woman just says, "Sure, I'll do it. No skin off my nose." People, anyone listening to this right now, if a random woman comes up to you and tells you a story that, "Hey, this man is stalking me. This woman is stalking me. Can you go talk to them for me?" Are you just jumping at the chance to talk to a random person that may be trying to do harm to this person? Probably not, right? And the old woman's like, "Oh, whatever little game this is, like, this is not a game." And then Ruby asks, "Oh, could you ask her if she knows the doctor?" Like, what? My God. We're like 5 minutes into this episode. And then, of course, the old woman logically asks the question, "Do you need a doctor?" Just the worst writing ever. Also, is Ruby dressed like Ashley from Resident Evil 4? Just out of curiosity, is that what they're going for here? So then the hitchhiker decides to talk to, I'm assuming, a witch. And they have like a 2-second conversation. The hitchhiker looks towards the camera. The music drops in a very dramatic way. And then she runs off screaming. Or whatever this is, which I assume it's some kind of running. And then Ruby, at I guess the only smart thing she did this entire episode, decides, let me start running and get the hell out of here. And then they show this town in the way distance. It's like, you're not getting there anytime soon, honey. And then we end up at the town of Pren Maria. I don't think I said that correctly, but that's the best I can do with this. Also, just really quickly want to add, at this point of the show, we still haven't gotten the opening credits or the opening theme song of the show, which I do find a little bit strange. Ruby finally enters the town at nightfall and of course looks behind her, and the witch is still doing the karate in the distance. Would you guys confront this person that's clearly, I don't know, stalking you? I don't know. I think I might have confronted her by now. And then, of course, Ruby enters the diversity bar. Ruby decides to ask the bartender, "Hi, do you have a room for the night?" I don't think she's grasping the seriousness of what's going on here. Why would you ask for a room for the night, though, if this person is stalking you? You're gonna go to sleep knowing that someone has been following you this entire time? And also, does Ruby have money at this point? The bartender informs Ruby that it's going to cost 65 quid, and she doesn't do breakfast. The best she could do is yogurt and toast. Ruby, of course, informs the bartender, "I don't have any cash, but can I pay with my phone?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And they get into a conversation about how online banking works. This is real, people. We are having a conversation while she's being stalked, and the doctor is essentially missing, about online banking. And I said this during the Space Babies episode. It's almost like they have the points that they want to put in the episodes and then build the episode around it. So, is this episode built around online banking and the banking system? Let's find out. And then Ruby goes into this long explanation of what online banking is, and it connects to your checking account and all this stuff, though. So, obviously, from the bartender's demeanor, she has no idea what's going on. Which makes me wonder, is this going on in the past because the bartender has no idea what's going on? And then she smugly says, "Of course you could pay with your phone," and then hands her one of those scanners that you can pay with your phone. So why did we get this conversation of, what do you mean pay with your phone, if she has the ability to pay with her phone? Doctor Who episode 4, people were paid money to write this. And a patron even looks at Ruby and goes, "We're not in the Dark Ages. Like, it looks like you're in the Dark Ages. This is the most dreary looking place I've ever seen." And then one of the people says, "Oh, next week we're getting Christianity." And some weird goth dude says, "Throw them to the lions." So, Christianity bash in part 2? Again, Russell, please tell me your opinions of Judaism and the Quran. Some weird gothic dude starts saying, "Yes, throw them to the lions and watch them get eaten and blood in their teeth." It's like, what is happening here? Then the bartender asks Ruby, "Oh, will you be drinking something?" And Ruby stammers for a long time and eventually says, "Oh, I'll just have a Coke." So, is this episode funded by Coca-Cola? Is that what the product placement is? Is that the only thing keeping this show afloat these days? And then Ruby goes to the window and asks one of the patrons, "Oh, do you see this woman outside?" What do you think, Ruby? Do you think Ruby has any idea of what's going on or anything going around in that head of hers? And then a few people at the bar are wondering, like, "Oh, what's this woman doing outside? We should invite her in." And Ruby says, "Oh, she's not with me. She's just following me." And the people at the bar look over concerned about what she just said. And one of the women asks, "Oh, she's following you?" And Ruby says, "I think so, yeah." What do you mean you think so? This woman's been following you for like 10 miles. And then the most logical human being that's ever been in the show asks the obvious question of, "Oh, if there's a woman following you, have you tried asking her why?" And honestly, if she would have done that, we probably would have gotten some kind of plot going on here. But no. 9 minutes in, we got nothing. Also, was Shooty Gatwick maybe busy or something like that? Is there a reason why you got rid of Doctor Who in the first few minutes of his own show? Why we shouldn't care about Ruby that much. So then some dude decides, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna go home now." And Ruby, of course, asks the dude, "Hey, can you go talk to this old woman for me?" And of course, this dude is like, "Sure, I'll ask her for you." But then, of course, Ruby has to stare out of the window and say, "Oh, well, following was the wrong word because she just kind of keeps her distance and doesn't approach me and just stays away." No, I'm pretty sure following is the correct terminology here. Is this like an episode about, oh, he's not really stalking you, he's just going in the same direction as you really, really fast? And then we get a conversation about, let's invent a new word. Ah, yes, we'll call it semper distance. This is again what filler dialogue is. It doesn't move the plot at all. So then we see the dude walk to the witch, pauses for a second, and then books it screaming. Gotta tell you, honestly, hand to God here, my nipples hard as rocks when that happened. They are doing a great job of freaking out the audience. And then the goth dude is like, oh my god, Josh is running like he's really running. And he asks Ruby, oh, what did she say to Josh? And she's like, I don't know. What do you mean? Obviously you wouldn't know. Shut up, everyone. This man is sprinting, screaming away, and she's talking about this woman that's been stalking her this whole time. There is something going on here. And Ruby starts explaining what's going on. That, oh, I saw this woman after we stepped on her little thing of skulls of birds and lucky charms and things like that. And then the mood changes. Apparently, the people in the bar might know what's going on. They question Ruby about, oh, what do you mean there was cotton out there? And, oh, witchcraft is a very strong word, and then Ruby apologizes for using the word witchcraft. We're then informed that the thing is called a fairy circle, where the girl at the bar then points to the goth guy and says, you could ask him about that. Russell, we get it. We know what you do. We don't need it shoved down our throats. We get it. What a disgusting word, a fairy circle. Disney Plus, again, this is on Disney Plus, a kid's show. We had the doctor talking about getting snowman, and now we got this. And then they ask Ruby, oh, did you break it? And Ruby stammers and goes, oh, well, we kind of did. And then the people there know what's going on. And Ruby questions, oh, I mean, it's not magic, is it? Excuse me, you're in a time-traveling phone booth. And now is the part where you start questioning things? You're with a essentially immortal human being that came out of David Tennant's crotch area. Like, what you shouldn't question a single thing right now. And then we get a really good description of what's going on and what Wales is with all of its castles, that they were torture centers set up by the English to rule with fear. Again, this is of course filler dialogue. So this isn't really filler dialogue as much though, because at least we're trying to get somewhere. And then Ruby kind of goes on about, oh, I just, stepped in the circle and my friend disappeared and I read some papers on the ground, and the people at the bar are like, you read them? You opened them up? And she's like, yeah, well, I just picked them up and opened them up. And then they asked Ruby, what did the letters say? And she said, oh, they just said, rest in peace and Mad Jack. And then the thunder claps, its mighty cheeks. And Ruby just keeps stammering on about, like, oh, I just thought it was someone's dog. It wasn't a big deal. It was like just shut up. Shut up and understand what's going on here. Clearly there's a problem. So it seems that Ruby has broken the seal, keeping this person, Mad Jack, whose spirit has been trapped this entire time in a circle that's just sitting there on the edge of a cliff, not even, like, remotely cordoned off or anything like that, though. That apparently the spirit of Mad Jack has finally been released. And the old woman that's been following Ruby is his herald. And then there's a banging at the door. And the gothic twink says this: he'd kill me. I'm the one he'd kill first. And you know why, don't you? Russell, do you honestly believe that this is something that's happening in society today, where people are being targeted for certain qualities about them? Is this the world that this man lives in? That he is in constant fear that, oh no, because I'm not this, the entire world is coming to kill me. Again, like I said before though, they had the idea, they had the political point, and then built the episode around it. It's always like one or two lines that you can see, this is why this episode is happening. And then for some reason, Ruby keeps arguing, no, that's not Mad Jack out there. And they're like, yes, it is Mad Jack. And she's like, no, it's just someone at the door. And Ruby opens the door, and we see some dude that's just delivering stuff, and he's been banging on this door like a fiend for some odd reason. And then the entire bar starts laughing at Ruby. So So is this a joke though? There is no Mad Jack, that this woman is not the Herald? What is going on here? And then the goth dude is like, "Oh yeah, I love that bit." Is this real? Is there really a Mad Jack? Is this woman the Herald? What is going on here? And the old woman at the bar says, "It's racist, my dear, to be blunt." What does that mean? There is no one here that is remotely a different color than Ruby right now. Where is the racism going on here? And then she says, "People come from outside. They think we're all witches and druids." What do you mean? There's proof of this. There's a gravestone potentially out there with scrolls and this old woman that's following Ruby. What do you mean? This place looks like a place filled with nothing but witches. There's a goth dude sitting at the table. And then they just keep playing it off. They're like, "Oh, for God's sakes, child, you just walked into a piece of string." It's like, what about the woman that's been following me for 5 miles? And then every time she speaks to someone, the person hauls ass away. Does anyone have any clarity of what's going on here, or the seriousness of what's going on? And Ruby just, again, breathes a sigh of relief and looks outside, and the witch is still out there in the distance, in the rain, just doing her stuff, and the doctor's still missing. So, by what this show is telling us, that it's racist to assume that this is a witch, then how do you explain this person out there? And then night cuts to day instantly, and the witch is still out there doing her thing. And Ruby is just having her yogurt, jam, and toast like it's nothing. The doctor's still missing. She can't get into the TARDIS. She has no idea what's going on. Do you think food and a Coke and a conversation about online banking would be remotely on anyone's minds? So do you think that Ruby spent the night at the bar, or did she spend the entire night staring at that window? Because if I'm her, I ain't sleeping a wink. I'm not remotely closing my eyes at all. So then it cuts to Ruby going back to the TARDIS with a lawn chair and a jacket. So she walked this entire distance again with this, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be racist, this witch that's been following her the whole time. Wouldn't you be afraid to do anything at this point? And she just pops a squat and stares at the TARDIS as we see again the witch in the distance. At this point, would you have remotely approached her or anything? And then for some, I don't know what the point of this was though, it cuts back to Ruby at the bar, and the bartender runs to her and goes, "Oh, Josh says he's not coming back. What did you say to him?" He said, ask her. And Ruby says, "Oh, maybe he meant ask her," and points out the window to the witch. So I guess that was just a mini flashback of Ruby sitting there and remembering 5 minutes ago when the bartender said, "Oh, you'll be packing your things and never coming back." Just no one is acknowledging that there's a witch outside stalking this woman. Everyone in the world is just completely oblivious to this. And also, is Mad Jack a character or just like a massive red herring? And then Ruby starts talking to the TARDIS as if the doctor is in there and he locked the door because he's mad at her, because she's saying, "I might as well go home. I haven't even known you for that long anyway." Does Ruby think that the doctor at this point, the doctor that is ready to sacrifice himself for her, and as Ruby was there dying in the last episode, was losing his mind at the prospect of her being dead, you think he's just holed up in the TARDIS, just chilling? And she even starts questioning, like, "Oh, maybe this is what you do. This woman is a moron in every sense of the word." And then she starts pleading with the box and saying, "Oh, if you'd come back, I'd love to see you again." Russell T Davies thinks right now that Ruby thinks that the doctor's mad at her and wrote this down. Honestly, if that's me, I have already broken this door down. If I think the doctor is inside there, potentially mad at me or hurt or something, just what is this dialogue? And then she even says bye-bye and walks away all upset. And then Ruby looks to the witch and says, okay, I'm going now. You win. It's just the worst written show ever. Ever. And then we cut to Ruby on a train. Was there a train anywhere at all on this peninsula? We saw a town way off in the distance, so she walked all the way back to sit in front of the TARDIS, then give up, and then walk all the way in another direction to the train. Okay. And Ruby looks out of the window from the train, and what do you think she sees? The witch in the middle of the road doing karate again. And then we pass a field with sheep. And what does Ruby see? The witch again. I think at this point, I think she might be getting it because she keeps gasping every time she sees the witch. So, is something clicking with her that this isn't normal? And then Ruby shows up at her house and her mom is like, oh, you're back. Like, how long has she been gone, though? I know time works differently with the TARDIS because of time travel and everything like that, but in normal people time, how long has Ruby actually been away? Like a day, a month, a year? Because they just put in the coordinates for Wales and showed up there. They never said what year it was. The doctor even questioned what year Ruby was from when he was talking about nuclear war and stuff like that. So, I don't think that this is happening, like, the next day in Ruby's world, right? I guess Ruby must have explained off-screen what was going on between her and the doctor, and the mother says, like, oh, the doctor's just in his box, that's what men do. They go into their shed and they potter. They really want us to think as an audience that the doctor is just mad. Is that what's happening? Realistically, people, is that what's happening right now? Russell T Davies wants to try to convince us that the doctor is mad at Ruby. What was Shooty Gatwick doing when they were filming this? That they decided, oh, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to write you off on your own show. Yeah, the mother just goes on about, like, oh, you know, he's got his train sets and his hobbies and things women should never know about. It's so bad. There is nothing redeeming about this show at all. The mother goes on by saying, oh, I've never had a shed, I've never had a man, but that's what they say. Just the worst dialogue in human history. I understand why the BBC wants to get rid of this show like the plague. Please, if you like this show, please tell me why. What about this show is good? And then the mother goes on by saying, yes, your intergalactic man, even though he's intergalactic, he's still in his own shed doing his pottery. Has Ruby informed this woman that, oh, I'm being stalked by a witch for hundreds of miles now? But then Ruby informs her mother there's something else going on, and the two hatch a plan of, oh, I'm going to approach her with my phone and I'm going to call you. I find this to be the most absolutely ridiculous thing ever. You realistically think that this woman has just been told by her daughter, this woman has been following me for hundreds of miles. This woman would be out here with a frying pan ready to go to war. This is the most unrealistic part of this whole episode. This woman would beat the crap out of the stalker. Like, if this episode was happening in, I don't know, Brooklyn, this witch would have been curb stomped already. So the mother just decides, okay, I'm gonna go run off to this woman and just talk to Ruby on the phone so she can hear what's going on. And of course, because we need more filler, one of the neighbors is starting to question Ruby, what's going on? She's like, oh, I'm just talking to my mother. And the woman says, oh, you're standing in the street on the phone to your own mother. Russell, is there like a time limit that you need to reach in these episodes in order for Disney to pick it up? Could you not have just shed 15 minutes off this episode? Again, I hate to give this show praise. They do this scene They do all these scenes so incredible. I'm telling you, I'm not lying to you at all. I have goosebumps. Again, my nipples can cut through ice right now. It is terrifying. The music and the way this is filmed. This is the only good thing this show has done so far. They know how to do horror really, really well. So obviously, the mother just turns and runs and screams. And it is haunting. And Ruby starts screaming and chasing her mother, saying, "Mom, don't do this to me." As if, like, the mother is pulling one over on Ruby. I know that's a British term. I've been watching the show clearly too long, though. Sorry, guys. You think, like, the mother is screwing around or something? And she's like, "No, Mom, don't do this to me." And runs off screaming. And then Ruby... here's the setup for it. They're looking down the road. The mother has run off. Ruby is running in the only direction, which is forward, where the mother and the witch were just at. And she gets to the end of the road, and the witch is not there. It's not even like, oh, she disappeared, though. The camera just doesn't turn around until later on, and the witch is behind Ruby in the way distance. So... does the witch just dematerialize? Does she just disappear in the blink of an eye? We don't know that. It's just bad camera work. And then a car passes by, I assume a taxi, really, really slowly. And Ruby's mother is in it, staring daggers at her. And Ruby just starts chasing the taxi, screaming for her mother, telling her, "Please don't go." Does Ruby understand that something's going on here? And then Ruby does the only logical thing anyone could possibly do in this situation. Starts crying in the middle of the street. And then I guess, I'm sorry, I don't know the characters in this. I guess Ruby's grandmother starts questioning Ruby of, "Oh, what do you mean your mother just ran away?" And Ruby says, "It wasn't me. It was that woman, what she said to her." And then Ruby keeps calling her mother and leaving more messages saying that, "I don't care, I'll leave 100 messages. They want us to believe that people just don't like her now. That's the writing right now, the quality of writing with Doctor Who, that they're trying to convince the audience that the witch is just saying to everyone that this woman, Ruby, is just a big jerk. And they're like, "Oh my god, a jerk. And let's just shun her forever." There's no seriousness going on right now at all. And she even starts negotiating with her mother saying, "Oh, if you come home, I'll make that shepherd's pie you like." It's bad everywhere, people. Please defend this show. I would love someone to defend this episode and tell me realistically of what an audience member is supposed to be feeling right now. And then as Ruby's coming home, her door is locked. And her key is not working for some reason. And Ruby starts screaming, "You can't change the locks on me." I don't mean to keep harping on this point, people, but it just keeps happening. It just keeps going on and on and on. This is the storyline that they want to try to convince us is going on. People are mad at her. And then we get a time shift to darkness, and Ruby is just sitting on the floor, upset outside of the apartment. But then, it's almost like Russell T Davies hears me complain about this. Ruby then gets her mom on the phone, so her mother is in the apartment and tells Ruby to stop calling. Again, the door it's gone at this point. I have already broken in. And then we get one of the coldest lines in this entire series. "Even your own mother didn't want you." Cold-blooded, this mother is. Ruby looks up and it starts snowing. So, is this kind of like Rosario Dawson's character in Men in Black 2? Where she was like the princess of some planet and Kay explained to her that when you're sad, it rains and it only rains when you're sad? Is it like, oh, Ruby's sad, so it starts to snow? And then we cut to the next day, and Ruby is sitting outside, just watching this witch, still. People, how long do you think it would have taken you to finally say, "Oh, I might have to confront this person"? It would have been like, I don't know, the first 5 minutes for me. And then as Ruby's sitting there at this diner, this woman comes up, Kate Lethbridge Stewart, And she says, I think I can help you, and sits down next to Ruby. And now for this part, I do apologize if I'm getting this wrong. I've watched this part a few times now. I don't really know if I'm hearing or reading this correctly. So again, if I'm wrong on it, just please correct me on it. Ruby says this, yeah, and that was over a year ago. She's put an injunction out against me, my own mother. I thought I could move back to Manchester, but I don't want to leave, just in case. Are we to believe that this has been going on for a full year? Is that what's happening right now? A full year has passed, and this woman has been dancing in front of Ruby, and Ruby had to get a job to make ends meet, and at no point talk to this woman. And Shooty Gatwick has the audacity to say, oh, people are just not tuning in because of diversity. Are you out of your mind? Are you severely out of your mind? In what world is this entertaining for anyone? And then Kate says, oh, we have a tradition of helping the Doctor's former companions out. So, is this an agency that this has happened before, that the Doctor is with these people for only a certain amount of time? So is that what's going on here? Is that the Doctor just has an assistant for a certain amount of time, and then when they let them loose into the world again, there's an agency that comes by and says, oh, let me help adjust you to normal life? Is that what, is there an, I'm sorry, I don't watch the show. Is there an agency that works with the Doctor? Because to my knowledge, I thought the Doctor just works solo. She then says she's with the Unified Intelligence Task Force. And their job is to investigate the extraterrestrial and also the supernatural. So this is the Hellboy Association or something like that of Doctor Who? And then Kate says, oh, I wish you got in touch with us sooner. How would Ruby have gotten in touch with you sooner if she didn't even know you people existed? And then they get into a really weird conversation of oh, I didn't know that society could survive without the Doctor, and oh yes, we're surviving by the skin of our teeth, but it's possible that this timeline is paused because of your event. What is going on here? And then Kate asks about the TARDIS, and Ruby says, oh yeah, it's just sitting over on that place, and I'm surprised no one's reported it. But then Kate says, oh yeah, the TARDIS has a perception thing on it where people notice it and then don't notice it. What a plot convenience. And also, more importantly, the TARDIS is in the middle of nowhere. I don't really believe that anyone would realistically stumble upon it, because it's so in the middle of nowhere. So then Ruby realizes that, oh, maybe the witch has some kind of a perception filter, because no one at work goes up to her. They just kind of notice her and then not notice her like it's nothing. So I'm just wondering, where are we going with this? And then Ruby goes on to explain that yes, she's tested these theories out of having her just stand in front of a police car and the police car just goes around her, and oh, she's always staying 73 yards away and she's measured it a bunch of times before. And then Kate says oh, what if you went on a plane or a boat or something like that? And Ruby then says, oh, I thought about doing that, but then I thought if I cut her off, I might die. So Ruby thinks that they have a symbiotic relationship where they're connected. She's also kind of concerned, oh yeah, I'm afraid that she would die as well. So, wouldn't Ruby not care because this woman has made your life hell for a year and has been stalking you and freaking you out this entire time? Then Ruby's oh yeah, does that sound mad? And Kate's oh yeah, that sounds wise to me. What? You're the worst character on this show and you've been here for 5 seconds. And then Kate goes on this explanation of, yes, that's what we all do. We see things that are inexplainable and invent the rules to make it work. She says, and I quote, mankind saw the sunrise and created God. Wow. I hope you lose 500,000 viewers overnight. You are the absolute worst group of people out there. and yet you are constantly shilling for kindness and acceptance, yet bashing Christianity at every turn. And to the people that are saying, oh yeah, that's fun, I'll watch it, you better watch the show 100 times to make up for the deficit of people leaving. It's astonishing. This show wants to lose so badly, to the point where they want nothing more than to be able to sit in a corner and cry about diversity and inclusion and how much the world hates them. There is a reason why you're hated. This is why. So then Kate gets a text message and says, oh yes, 73 yards exactly. My people are looking into this. I hope you don't mind. And Ruby looks around. There's a bunch of like Men in Black people and vans just showing up. But Kate starts explaining to Ruby that, don't worry, our people have psychic training and necklaces with salt in them, so they know what's going on, and they acknowledge that this is a supernatural being or some otherworldly thing. So, is there like a Men in Black type of society in the world of Doctor Who that we haven't seen until now for some odd reason? And then Kate gives the signal, and all of these cars show up, and all these dudes with machine guns approach the witch. And then all the soldiers stop and stare at Ruby. And Kate slowly turns at Ruby, stone-faced, and says, disengage. And she gets up and walks away. I'm telling you, the only good thing this show has ever done are these scenes. Everything else, dumpster fire. But this right here is scary as hell. And at this point, I honestly just question this. What could possibly happen next? What could Ruby possibly do to get herself out of this? I mean, obviously, if it was me, I would have already set fire to the entire forest. I would have went back to where the TARDIS was, and I would have just lit the entire circle on fire. But again, that's just me, though. I would have already confronted the witch. But what do you realistically do? And as a showrunner, what do you write next? And it even just shows a montage of Ruby has now started dating someone, and he's asking her, like, oh, you don't want to go away or do anything, is there someone else? And her hair is even longer, and we're being shown different months and holidays going on. So this has just been going on this entire time for who knows how long. And then it shows that she's on a date with someone else, so she is just going through relationships. I don't know what to make of this anymore, guys. This is really dumb. And I might have missed this, though, but the birthday cards keep changing, too. So I think now she's in her 40s, and it just keeps showing her on more and more dates with different men. And she keeps looking out her window and acknowledging that the witch is outside. So where do we go from here? And then as Ruby's on this date, as this guy is kind of, I guess, somewhat breaking up with her, she then finds herself drifting off watching British Jeopardy, I assume. And this dude is on there, and he's explaining all the jobs that he's ever had. And he looks at the camera and goes, I'm a jack of all trades. And we cut back to the scene at the bar where everyone's saying Mad Jack, but I thought that the Mad Jack thing was like a bit that they did to Tourist. So there is a Mad Jack in this series that's doing things? And then we cut back to a line from the Doctor saying Roger Ap Gwilliam, I think the name is exactly, which is the dude on the screen. So for like a couple of years now, Ruby remembered this dude's name. This random name in passing with the Doctor. And now he's on TV. And then we get again back to the conversation where the Doctor explained, and I didn't even remotely bring this up though because it was just stupid lines, that this dude was the worst prime minister in history and led us towards nuclear war. And then Ruby starts breaking up with her boyfriend, saying that, look, you were sweet and everything, this is nice, but you were right, it was never gonna work out, this was all my fault. And then she throws in the line, except for the bed thing, 'cause that was really you. What does she mean by that? Is she saying that, like, everything was her fault, but the bed thing was his fault? And he's looking down very, very embarrassed and, I guess, upset. The fact that she's acknowledging this incredibly embarrassing thing, like, I'm supposed to root for you? And as she's leaving, she says, oh, I know what I must do. And for some reason, this guy, who hopefully will never see this woman again for the rest of his life, asks the stupid question of, what are you going to do? And she says, oh, I'm going to save the world. Are we to understand here that this is all happening, that a throwaway line in the beginning of the episode, that again, I didn't even remotely say because I thought it was stupid, that she is now going to save the world. And then a very, very confident Ruby walks outside and looks to her witch and says, come on, we have work to do. I don't know what's going on here. And I'm saying that realistically. Does anyone know what's going on at this point of the episode? And we still have like 20 minutes left. So it wasn't a Jeopardy thing she was watching. It was, I guess, a guy during a presidential parliament debate or something like that. So Ruby goes to the campaign place and offers her services. And let me just say this to the audience right now. If you can get a job canvassing, take the job. It is the easiest job in the world. And you literally, I say this literally, do not have to do a single solitary thing. And I was getting paid $20 to $25 an hour. And I was working like 10 hours a day. Telling you, if you can get a job canvassing, go for it. So Ruby offers her services to the campaign. She's like, oh, I have $1,000. I could donate it right now. I'll answer phones. I'll do blah and blah and blah. And I'll even carry the coats if you want me to. And then it cuts to Ruby carrying the coats as like a debate's going on. But long story short, in the middle of this interview, the interviewer is like, oh, you want to spend 65 million pounds on nuclear weapons. And he's like, oh, well, I'm a Welshman. That's what the app in my name means. I thought that was like a mispronunciation, or the subtitles just didn't pick up on it. This dude literally has the word app in his name for some reason. And he keeps going on. It's like, oh, I'm Welsh. I know what it means to be oppressed. Are the Welsh people oppressed? Is there anything going on in the world of the Welsh people that I'm not privy to? And then he just kind of goes on about, yes, if you elect me, I'm going to protect our borders, and that's what I'm here to do. So you're protecting the borders with 65 million pounds of nuclear weapons? Like, I kind of understand. No, I don't understand. It doesn't really make any sense. It's just weird, like, inserted politics of what's going on. But as usual, it's done so incredibly poorly. It just comes off as clunky. And then he goes on and on about, oh yes, the Great Russian War of 2031, not a single nuke was fired. And the interviewee says, wait a second, you want to fire a nuke? And then App Welshman, whatever his name is, looks over in the distance and says, oh, we can cut that part out, right? Alright, good. And then they take a 10-minute break for some weird reason. Like, this is the bad guy, I'm guessing? And we're like 32 minutes into this episode with 17 left to go, and we're now introduced to the bad guy? So then the interview is cut short, though, and all the people leave, but of course grabbing their coat from Ruby's arms. They actually hired this woman to hold the coats, and she's mad about that, even though it was her suggestion. Is that like a feminist joke in there somewhere? I don't know. So then App Welshman decides to go to Ruby and just says, oh, you're with us, right? And Ruby looks over ominously at him and goes, oh, yes, I am. And then he looks over behind him and goes, oh, who's that woman over there? And at first I'm thinking, oh, can you see the witch? But it's some woman, and her name is Marty something, and he looks over and goes, oh, that's a boy's name, and then kind of shrugs and walks over to this random person. And then I guess we cut to some time later where this dude, Roger App Gwilliamson, what a terrible name, Gwilliamson. Is this a real name, Gwilliamson? But anywho, he won. Landslide victory for Parliament. Declared the new Prime Minister. And like, what was his campaign? Vote for me and I'll nuke the entire world? And the first thing he says when he is elected is, I will go to the magistry and declare government. I don't understand British politics. So if you understand what that line means, can you kind of explain that to me as if I'm a 5-year-old? So then Ruby sits next to Marty, and for some odd reason, Marty is looking very sad, and Ruby says, between you and me, I know he's brilliant, but sometimes I don't know, I think he gives me the shivers. Like, doesn't Ruby already know that this guy, from what the doctor said, enacts some kind of nuclear war? So wouldn't you just obviously know there's just something up about this guy? And Marty just looks over and goes, oh yes, he's a monster. Why are you people here if he's so bad? I don't understand what we're supposed to be. What's the analogy here? So then we cut to I was going to say soccer stadium, but I guess it's called football here. A football stadium where I guess this is where the inauguration is going to take place. They explain that it has 30,000 seats and 10,000 more on the pitch. I don't know what the hell is happening anymore. Dare I say, this episode might be worse than Space Babies. It's not just that this episode is poorly written, it's really incompetent. There is no joy in this episode at all. Like, Space Babies, it was stupid, don't get me wrong though, but at least they were trying to, like, go somewhere and there were things happening. This is Ruby just existing. And in a show called Doctor Who, where there's all this futuristic sci-fi things, existing is not enough to make me care about this show. And still, the witch is just 73 yards away in the stands, just doing her thing still. This whole time. But then we get a weird line, and some guy is looking over at the now Prime Minister saying, oh, he's so nice, he shakes everyone's hand, I'd love to meet him one day. And one of the event coordinators says, nope, no, we can't meet him anymore, he's the Prime Minister. But Marty, you can meet him, apparently there's room for you at the party Saturday night. So is this like, you know, he's like doing things to Marty that are against the terms of service that I cannot say? But is that what they're alluding to? That this is his cup of tea? And of all the cups of teas in the world, this is the one that he's gonna risk everything for. Is that what you're trying to allude to me, Russell T Davies? And then for some odd reason, again, this is supposed to be a super secret thing, the dude that's in charge of everything, for some reason, is sitting next to Ruby and says, yes, soon everything's gonna change, because we're purchasing the nuclear arsenal from Pakistan. And now they're gonna be declared independent from NATO. I'm sorry. I've lost the plot. I don't know how we got here anymore. Where is the doctor? And then Marty's like, oh, Saturday, he's gonna launch. Who are we at war with at this point, though? We don't get any alluding scenes of news outlets saying, oh, this place is attacking here, or this place is making... Wouldn't it make more sense that if we had a shot of, I don't know, a newspaper saying North Korea or something like that wants to go to war with Wales or something? Why are we making it seem like that this dude is going to press the button, launch all these bombs with no targets in sight? And Rudy stands up and looks at Marty and says, oh, I'm so sorry. I wish I could have helped you. I just needed to be sure. So, are you telling me that this entire time that Ruby wasn't sure that this was the dude, the very same dude that the doctor name dropped and explained that he's going to declare nuclear war? She needed to see for herself that this is happening. But again, it hasn't happened yet. So Ruby then decides to go onto the pitch, which means the middle of the grass, if you don't know what that means. And she stands at the middle and faces the Prime Minister, who's on a podium way in the distance. She pulls out her phone, which has a measuring function on it, points at the witch, and it says out loud, oh, 55 yards away. So she starts backing up as everyone is yelling at her to get off the grass. And clearly they realize something's off because you're not allowed to take pictures of this dude. And she keeps using her phone. And she starts backing up, and then the phone says 56 yards away. And there's even dudes with machine guns raising their guns to her as she's just stepping backwards more and more for some odd reason. I'm guessing that we haven't seen the witch teleport in like real time, so Does the witch just continuously keep zapping forward? We haven't seen that at all yet. So it's kind of weird that now, at the 35-minute marker, that now we're going to see how the witch moves. But of course, I give them too much credit, because the camera starts cutting around as everyone's raising their guns, and then of course we see the witch standing next to the Prime Minister because now she's exactly 73 yards away. So this whole time we've never actually seen how the witch moves. The witch just moves. And then for some odd reason, the Prime Minister notices the witch next to him, because this is a little weird though, because no one has actually gone to approach the witch on their own. They all had to be instructed to do so by Ruby. But now, even before though, Ruby said, yes, people notice the witch, but don't go to her unless they don't go to her at all. She even said this. But now, all of a sudden, because the plot demands it, now we can interact with the witch, acknowledge her existence, and go up to her without Ruby saying anything. So then, of course, Roger looks at the witch, looks back at Ruby, and then runs like hell. This one was a lot less scary for some reason, I guess because it's so incredibly stupid looking. And then everyone starts chasing after this guy. And then Ruby starts laughing, and we cut over to Marty cackling too, though. But is this a win? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. How is this a win? The guy ran away, and now he's mad at Ruby, so of course she's going to be barred from every single event or anything like that. It's not like he's just going to run until the end of time, right? And if they're alluding that, just like with Josh in one of the earlier scenes of it, when he was at the bar and talked to the witch and then ran away, the bartender said, "Oh, he's not coming back here." So because the Prime Minister is not coming to this specific spot for the inauguration, that it's not gonna happen? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Russell T Davies? But then it cuts to the news. He resigned. Russell Ap Gwilliam resigned of the office of the Prime Minister. I'm spitballing here. I did not watch any further than this, though, so this is just my pure prediction. Is Ruby eventually going to be the witch or something like that? Is that why we've never actually seen her? We could only see her vaguely in the distance. Does Ruby eventually become this woman? But didn't she just like screw with the fabric of time, though, because the Doctor acknowledged that war happened, so now war's not going to happen? So does it not create an alternate reality or something? Is that... I'm so sorry, I'm rambling for some odd reason, trying to make sense of the show. And then this other random woman takes over, but it's okay though, because she calls for a more lenient and listening government. What does that mean? What does lenient and listening government mean to the average person? And then Ruby looks out of her apartment window at the witch, and she's like, is that why you're here for? Can you leave me alone now? Honestly, I might have already gunned down this witch already. Like, you wouldn't have even tried? And then when you didn't think things could possibly get even worse in the show, we get the tagline, 40 years later. And then we cut to Ruby as an old woman showing up at the TARDIS. But then, of course, she looks over to her left and the witch is still there. So, for over 40 years, she has been denied life, essentially. The pursuit of relationships and essential happiness, as she's being stalked by this witch for 40 years. And we're supposed to believe that this is a good thing? This is terrible. So then she's just sitting by the TARDIS talking with this person, I guess her caregiver, and the TARDIS is covered in moss and people have been leaving flowers this whole time. And Ruby's just sitting there going, "Oh, I presume my mother has been gone this whole time." Like, she has no reaction to the fact that her adopted mother has most likely been gone this entire time, and that was it. She's just, like, cool with that, just shrugs it off. And she even says it hasn't snowed either. For 40 years, it hasn't snowed? And Ruby is just sitting in this hospital bed. I guess she's in a nursing home now. And she's just chatting it up with the attendant. "Oh, I used to make it snow, and everyone in life has abandoned me. Realistically, am I supposed to feel any joy watching this show? I honestly miss Space Babies. I wish this entire show was written like the episode of Space Babies. Or the Maestro. Dare I say, I would love to see the Maestro back. But the last 2 episodes are terrible. They are not a joy to watch at all. I do hope, gentle viewer, you are enjoying this because it is not fun to watch this show at all. Please do not watch this show. And Ruby keeps explaining, I've been alone for 65 years. What a life. And then Ruby decides to go to sleep, but is woken up in the middle of the night by something. She looks up, and the witch is in the room, not 75 yards away, like 10 feet, just with her back turned, doing her karate stuff. And then the lights go out, and when they turn back on, the witch is like 5 feet away. And the witch starts turning slowly towards Ruby, and Ruby extends her arms to the witch, as if accepting her fate, and okay with going off into the great beyond. And then, we cut to the beginning of the episode. Ruby, as old Ruby's point of view. She is the witch, looking at the TARDIS. The moments at the beginning of the episode, the Doctor and Ruby exiting the TARDIS. Him saying, oh, we're in Wales. And then Ruby looks over in the distance and goes, oh, who's that over there? And then Ruby looks over and sees the woman. And then we hear a whisper of, don't step. And then the Doctor goes to take a step. And Ruby goes, whoa, don't step. And he doesn't step on the ritual thing that's on the ground. And the Doctor starts gushing about this fairy circle. It's charms and spells and hopes and dreams. So, just out of pure curiosity, the showrunners believe in witchcraft but not Christianity. Just let's just get that out of the way for a second. The Doctor is very, very, very respectful to the witchcraft, but craps on Christianity any chance he gets. Ruby even at one point tries to grab 4 of the charms, and the Doctor says, no, don't do that. Give them their respect, he says. Oh, I'm so sorry, Doctor. You now care about people's fate and belief system all of a sudden? This is an odd twist. And then as they just walk off, the Doctor's like, oh yeah, how many, you've been to Wales 3 times, you say. You've only said 2. What's the 3rd time? And Ruby just thinks for a second and goes, oh, I guess now? And then we cut to black. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the episode. What did this episode accomplish? We spent the entire time watching Ruby. What? Explain to me. What is happening? Some weird, paradox of something? Where the whole... Where did the Doctor go? So he stepped on the fairy circle and then disappeared. And the TARDIS not moved at all. The Doctor had anything going on for the rest of this time. There's a secret organization that works with the Doctor that hightailed it as soon as the witch, which was Ruby, spoke to them. And all these... So, she was here to prevent nuclear war, but, she stopped it from happening. This, ladies and gentlemen, might very well be, and I don't think I've ever said this before in my entire life, the absolute worst episode of anything I have ever seen. It is astonishing of how bad this episode was. And again, I do hope you enjoyed this, and I thank you very much for watching this. But oh no. I just realized this as I stopped the recording. She actually didn't prevent nuclear war at all. Because the events would have still happened the same way. Right? This dude did not get elected because of her, right? So now that the Doctor is here and Ruby is not seeing the witch and the witch isn't talking to these people, this dude is still going to get elected. Right? He's still going to get elected. And now still enact nuclear war because the witch did not show up. This is I just realized this. Again, as I started editing this up, I just realized this episode accomplished nothing. Nothing at all. It wasn't like, oh, Ruby saved the day. Nuclear war still happened. So, what? What the hell was all of this for? We learned nothing. We learned no lessons. And like I just keep saying, Ruby did not prevent nuclear war. What do you guys think about that?